right. Dr. Fadel Zeidan, thanks for coming on.
You're welcome.
So, just to start off, do you think you could tell the audience a little bit about yourself, where you work, what you do, what keeps you going?
Sure. My name is Fadel Zeidan. I'm a associate
Oh,
professor.
sorry, I totally mispronounced it. That's my
That's
bad.
okay.
Yeah.
It's a story of my life.
Okay. Uh-huh.
So I'm a neuroscientist at UC San Diego. I'm in the Department of Anesthesiology, and my training for my PhD is health psychology. So
Hmm.
how the way we think and behave impacts our health. And then I did a postdoctoral training. So after your PhD, you can get more specialized training. And I
Yeah.
learned how to do functional MRI. So I could do some brain scans while people are meditating or they're in pain.
Hmm.
And at Wake Forest University. And then
Yeah.
I came to UC San Diego in November 2018. And now I have a lab here where we're studying the effects of mindfulness meditation on health and the
Yeah.
brain.
You also did you've studied a little bit of Eastern philosophy, right?
So I did my master's program.
Hmm.
I got a liberal studies degree,
Yeah.
which is philosophy. So I was really into Western philosophy first,
Hmm.
and then I definitely got into Eastern philosophy and Eastern contemplative practices as well. Yeah.
Hmm. And at what point do you think your study of meditation entered, I guess, your work? At what point in your life did you decide you wanted to study it?
Yeah, so I didn't really know you could study it 20
Hmm.
years ago. It wasn't really something that was studied scientifically.
Hmm.
But while I was in college, some of the studies were starting to come out, and after college, I worked in a special education elementary school
Hmm.
program, and I taught my students in grades 3 through 5 how to meditate.
Yeah.
And by the end of the year, we started to see some really remarkable improvements in their behavior.
Hmm.
And then that's really what got me wanting to understand what's happening in the brain and the body and psychologically was when I
Hmm.
saw like changes in my students' performance academically and emotionally.
Hmm.
And that's when I started I mean, I studied mindfulness as a researcher in college, but I went to graduate school after my experience with my students. So,
Hmm.
college, I started, like, my first experiment was in 1999, I think. Yeah. I was a junior
Hmm.
in college, and, uh, and then I just took some chances I was really passionate about it,
Hmm.
and I just thought I'd study something I liked it.
Also, you said with the classroom you taught, was this the same one that had previously been on like medication? And
Yeah, they
then,
were all on meds, and
hmm.
then only one of them by the end of the year was still on medication. So
Hmm.
it was really profound. They were really intelligent kids. They
Yeah.
are really intelligent kids, but um, their emotional problems got in the way of their learning, and so meditation was uniquely useful to them for them to kind of control their behavioral outbursts.
Hmm. Do you think there's not that medication doesn't work or anything? Because I mean that's not what I'm trying to get at here. But do you think there's like a gap in medications that meditation is better at filling?
I think honestly that it would be very hard for me for stress or for anxiety or for depression or for just
Hmm.
well-being to find like one silver bullet.
Yeah,
Like
that's
it's
true.
not going to just be one dart that fixes everything. Like
Hmm.
we really need like multiple methods to promote well-being.
It's like you buckle the seatbelt and you keep the airbags on.
Yeah, and you like
Hmm.
stop before you hit a car.
That's fair. All right. So I'd like to segue into our next question.
Sure.
In the time you've studied meditation, what are some of the benefits that you've observed? What are some ways it can benefit people? Just things of that
Yeah.
sort.
Well, so I think that meditation works almost immediately for pain and anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
uh, mindfulness meditation in particular. And we're seeing now that it can be really effective for depression,
Mm-hmm.
for addiction, and then also like buffering the brain and body from not developing poorly. So
Mm-hmm.
it can be almost protective as well.
Yeah.
And so I feel like, the data are really super like clear that it can be really beneficial for a lot of
Mm-hmm.
mental and physical problems where, there's even studies that show that it could be efficacious or effective for obesity,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, there's something special about being able to stay in the present moment without letting our stressors and our emotions contaminate that moment.
Mm-hmm.
What's cool is that, like, just like if you're working out a muscle, you can do the same thing with your brain. And so the more that you do it, it seems like the better people are off, even when they're not meditating. Like
Yeah,
it just,
like the LTP.
yeah,
Yeah.
long-term potentiation, is that what LTP
Yeah,
is?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
All
So
right.
yeah, we start to see like more
Mm-hmm.
stable changes in brain processes with more training, which is cool.
Seems like there's a long list of benefits that studies at least support, right?
It's starting to get that way. We used to not
Mm-hmm.
be that way, right? And now
Yeah.
we're definitely at the space where we're seeing a lot of people, a lot of research showing that it's like reliably effective.
It
Yeah.
seems that it's also sort of picked up a wave in at least the West recently. I know that in pop culture it's found a big place. Uh,
Hmm.
why do you think that is? Why do you think it appeals to so many people?
Um, I think that there's something powerful about using yourself to make yourself feel better and not
Mm-hmm.
being dependent on someone. I
Mm-hmm.
think another reason is that it like works. So if it didn't work, maybe it wouldn't be so popular.
Mm-hmm.
And then like anything in popular mainstream media, it kind of just catches quickly, right? And
Yeah.
so if you're seeing like LeBron meditate courtside, that's gonna
Now I gotta meditate. LeBron
right,
did. It's
exactly. If
gotta work
LeBron's
then.
doing it,
Yeah.
if Tiger's doing it,
Mm-hmm.
then and it's working and they're saying it works, then it's that would be pretty popular.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the promise of pharmaceuticals is kind of falling short.
Mm-hmm.
And so, using something that's drug free, doesn't cost any money, can work almost immediately is super attractive.
All right. So, I know that you study meditation largely as a clinical application, but do you think it, or I guess to phrase the question differently, would you recommend doing it for everyday people who maybe don't have a clinical condition but just want to use it for mindfulness or wellness? Do you think it's something that everyone should be doing? What are some things you would be looking at if you were hoping to pick it up?
Yeah, no, so we study a lot of mostly healthy people
Mm-hmm.
in my lab, and we're really mostly interested in what's happening in the brain, what's
Mm-hmm.
happening in the, biologically.
Yeah.
So I think that, yeah, I think that it can make you a kinder person. I think that it can make you a healthier person, a more present-centered
Mm-hmm.
person. Uh, for instance, like if you're having trouble just staying in the moment and appreciating your life, like right
Mm-hmm.
here, right now, it can help kind of slow you down a bit to kind of be right here, right now, which is going to be beneficial for really anyone. So I, Wisconsin, the University of Wisconsin, famous neuroscientist Richard Davidson found the Center for Investigating Healthy Minds. And so the idea is why only focus on studying people that are sick when we should be studying people that are super healthy and what makes them super healthy, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so that's something that his work, especially and others, is showing that, uh, this does have benefits for folks that are doing well anyways.
So it's like a supplement you could add on to your life.
I think so, and you don't really need to be a monk to do it. You
Mm-hmm.
don't spend an hour meditating for you to feel better. Um, I know plenty of people that will just do 5 minutes and
Mm-hmm.
they feel great, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. So generally, could we say that you would recommend it to the
Yeah,
average person?
who am I, right? I'm a scientist. I'm not like a doctor or anything.
Yeah.
I would say this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if you're, it's not going to hurt to try it by any
Yeah,
means.
that's true.
Practice, and there's so many free resources available online.
Mm-hmm.
Um, as a scientist, I still have a lot more questions before I can just willy-nilly say I recommend it for everyone. But the data
Mm-hmm.
are certainly pretty clear that it does have health promoting benefits. Like it definitely seems to make people less stressed out and
Mm-hmm.
generally a little bit healthier. Yeah.
So there's also the stress reducing aspect of meditation. Uh, I know that your lab has done studies that show it reduces pain perception by a
Uh-huh.
significant amount. Uh, how about stress? Is it something that can be employed to, has it been shown, at least in studies, to reduce stress to a significant
Oh yeah,
degree?
big time. Yeah, we've published this work. So many others have published work showing that
Mm-hmm.
mindfulness reduces stress, anxiety, depression,
Yeah.
and yes, pain. Pain's cool, but it definitely does work for stress.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. So if you're stressed out about an exam or a big game or something, probably wouldn't hurt to take 5 minutes aside and do some breathing exercises.
It's just that for a lot of people, that's kind of counter nature because when you've got something like big on the horizon, that's the last thing that's on your mind. The first thing is hyperventilating and then
That's
running
right.
around. You know?
Well, you can have confidence that it will make you less stressed out about it
Mm.
or anxious
Yeah.
about it. And then if that's the case, then those stress responses kind of block you from remembering what you have to regurgitate for an exam, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if you can get that stress out of the way, it might be easier for you to be able to remember what you studied for.
All right. So, do you, if you're okay with me asking a somewhat personal question, do you have a mindfulness practice in your own life?
It's funny. I was talking to somebody earlier about this. I,
Yeah.
I don't have a regular practice. I try to be mindful every day.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever I start feeling stressed out, I'll start to do breathing practices right then and there.
Mm-hmm.
But, I don't sit on a cushion for 20 minutes a day or anything like
Yeah.
that. I used to. But now I'm just kind of more using it as needed.
Mm-hmm.
And I find it to be pretty efficacious, but I
Yeah.
wish I had more of a formal, training
Sorry,
practice.
I'm just.
It's okay.
All right. Sorry. I just. All right.
It's okay.
So, yeah, my brother just walked by.
I have brothers too. It's all good.
Yeah. All right. So, you also study the neural changes that mindfulness causes, or at least the neural effects using fMRI. Can you explain to us some of the things it changes, some of the pathways it affects,
Sure.
that it actually is something that changes you and not just, you know, I mean, it does sometimes hold weight as a placebo, but that it isn't just like a fad, that it does have like weight
Sure.
exerted.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, when you're meditating, we see some pretty profound changes in the brain related
Mm-hmm.
to, areas in the brain like the prefrontal cortex, which can help control emotions and
Mm-hmm.
and feelings and sensations. And then we also see that it um, can modify brain regions that are associated with worrying and what we call
Mm-hmm.
ruminating. and also can modify, areas in the brain that are associated with negative feelings and
Mm-hmm.
negative emotions. Yeah.
All right. So, uh, sorry, I'm a little bit tired as well. Uh, so what are some of these specific areas you've seen that it affects that are normally like active that mindfulness helps tone down a little bit?
Mm. Well, so in the context of pain, it reduces a very active area during pain called the thalamus,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of like a gatekeeper from the body into the
Yeah, it's
brain.
like the switchboard, right?
It can work to kind of filter what it lets in.
Mm-hmm.
And then brain regions like the posterior cingulate cortex and the medial prefrontal cortex, these are part of the default mode network that are always on board when we're just
Mm-hmm.
kind of at rest. And we see that pain relief through meditation is associated with reducing activity in those areas.
All right. And you've also talked a little bit about beginner versus experienced meditators. Uh, could you talk a little bit about those differences and maybe how long it takes to go from beginner to experienced?
I don't know that question, but
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you that what we're starting to see is that the brain regions that are activated or deactivated during sitting meditation, if you keep practicing, then they become more stabilized when you're not meditating. So we start to see those changes happen in the person when they're not meditating as well.
All right. So overall, the literature does point to meditation as legitimately affecting your brain in these positive ways. It's
I
not
think
just
so.
a fad, it's not just a trend.
I don't think it's a fad. It's been a lot around for, meditation practice has been around for 5,000 years or something.
Mm-hmm.
So I think
Yeah.
what's happening is that we're seeing that the research is being done in a way that um, is showing some of the benefits that people have been talking about for
Mm-hmm.
a long time.
Right. And a lot of those benefits were like experientially found by like monks, and then
Sure.
they would write it down. And but
Exactly.
the literature is generally reaffirming the.
It's showing some of the things that they said were happening and some of the things that may not. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's been kind of helpful tool to kind of show us what it is and what it isn't.
Yeah, I know that with a lot of Eastern meditation techniques, there was a lot of like spiritual deities involved that maybe aren't, or I'll have to phrase this very delicately, but that aren't necessary for mindfulness,
Yeah,
right?
we strip out all that from our studies, the spiritual component, and just
Yeah.
basically just teach people how to practice.
All right. So it's simple. You can add it. Definitely works. Yeah. All right. Well, Dr. Zidane, I got it. Did I get it this time?
You did, you nailed
All
it.
right. Thank you. Well,
Thank you,
thanks for
Simon.
coming on. Yeah.
I appreciate you, man.
Yeah, you too. Have a good day.
You too.